Hello. Today we're going to get started by making a drum machine, and this will be a few videos long. I would say somewhere five videos or so. And we're going to do this. I know that in my class or on this channel, we often just look at game design, and I think that game design provides a very full experience to programming. There's a lot of unique challenges in game design that are applicable to all areas of programming. But I kind of want to do something a little bit different that allows other people to get excited about this. You know, there are some people in my class that are just not excited about game design, but they might be just excited about other things that they could program. So we will be making a drum machine, but ultimately you can do anything because I've made piano sequencers using the same types of principles. You could do a lot of things and keep to the general idea of this project, but branch off and do your own thing pretty easily. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this base code that we've used many times before. And if you don't have it offhand, you could copy it right now, or there's a link in the description of the video. And then what we're going to do is what we want to do is start by making a 2D grid, okay? And so the first thing that we need in a 2D grid is we just want to make the board, okay? So we're going to create a function, and we're going to call it draw board. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to create a single for loop. We can do it all in a single for loop, and so we're going to say well, r is less than 17, so we're making an 18 by 18 grid, and so let's see here. Actually, that would be 17. So this is a 16 by 16 grid. I'm sorry, 16 by 16 grid. We do need the extra side to go all the way to the end, and that'll be apparent in just a second. R++. Okay, and so what we want to do is we want to create some lines, okay? And so we're going to start by creating some black lines. So we're going to say stroke style. And so we do our begin path for our line. And then where do we want to start our line? Well, we're going to start our first line. We're going to start it at r times 25, r times 25, and then plus the initial 25. So I don't want it right on the edge. So if you think of this as the canvas, so the canvas would start at 0, 0, and we want to start at the very corner. We want there to be somewhat of a border. So we're going to say plus 25 here. Okay, and so this is going to be starting at 25 down as well. So CTX, and this should say, y'all probably caught that, move to. And then CTX dot line to. And then basically we're going to go all the way to the 425 coordinate, so r times 25 plus the 25, and then we're going to go down to 425, or over to 425. Okay, so, and then we're going to say ctx.close path, and then we're going to do ctx.stroke to finally make that that line. And so I'm going to copy this, and so these are lines that are going from top to bottom, And so now what I want is lines going from left to right. And basically, it's the same thing. So I'm just going to say cut this, delete that, and we're going to go that, just like that. And so I'm going to copy this. That's 425 on the end. And so this is going to say 425. Okay. We'll do ctx.closePath and ctx.stroke. Okay, so we want to test this. So we're just going to say drawBoard. We're just going to call the function. Let me go ahead and create some space down here so that we can see exactly what's going on. So we're just going to call this function that we just created, drawBoard. Oops. And save, run, and looks like we have some issues here. So let's see what kind of issues we are having. So, that would be an issue. So this is 425 right here. And then we have a nice little grid. Now, what ultimately we want is for each of these lines to represent an instrument. Okay, so this might be a cymbal, this might be a snare drum, this might be a bass drum, so forth and so on. And so if you imagine time at 0 starting over here, and then time at some measure later ending over here, we want these instruments to play in the sequence that time goes over them. Okay, and so let's just start by looking at this structure, because this may be our first exposure to 2D arrays in this class. Okay, and so if we think of a 1D array, we think of something like this. Okay, so we think of let's say that this is 4, and that is not on. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and so let's say that these had values in it. So this would be like a 5, a 6, 9, and 3. Okay, and so in this array, if we started this at 0, which arrays start at 1, 2, 3, we have 4 values in this array. Now, we only have numbers in here at this point. Okay, so there are 4 numbers. But what if we just had arrays in here? Okay, so we had an array of arrays. All right, so let's look at let's add another array to this. And I'm going to do my brush. Okay, so this would be considered the first array, or the 0th array. And this would be considered the second array, or the first index. So this would be the first index, which starts at 0. This would be the second one, starts at 1. So the second row. So here we have row 1. Actually, let's not confuse ourselves. Let's say row 0, and here we have row 1. Okay, and then this row is at index 0, and this row is at index 1. And then here we have, right here, we have columns. So this would be column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3. Let's put some values in here. So this one, we're going to have a 7, a 2, a 1, and a 5. Okay? So if I said array, you have to forgive the handwriting. array at 0, 2, well, this 0 right here is referring to the row. This 2 right here refers to the column. Okay, so here we have the 0th row and the 2nd column. So the value would be 9. So this would be equal to 9. What if we had 1, 1? Well, we would be in this 2nd row, so at index 1, and this would be a value of 2. So 2D arrays are not that difficult, okay? So just think in row column order. So the first number of our array, the first index of our, the first value of our array would be corresponding to the row, and the second one would be corresponding to the column, okay? And so here we have 16 rows across, and then we have 16 columns down. And so let's go ahead and what else do we need for this? Okay, so the first thing we need is, if we're going to do a drum machine, we want to do a drum machine that draws based on time and does updates based on time. Okay, so we want to be able to control the frames per second that our application is running at. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, there's a few ways of doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say function draw, and inside our function we're going to set a timeout, and in our timeout we're going to call a function and our function is only going to go at every frame that we frames per second that we set it at. Frames per second. Okay, and so we'll set that. Obviously this is going to be a variable, so we can change the frames per second, and we'll do that here in a second. So inside of this, what we're going to do is we're going to say request animation frame draw. Okay, and so we're going to start this off by calling draw once. Okay, we call draw, and basically it runs through this continuously. All right, and so what you would do in this kind of function is anything you want to happen would go here. Okay, and we do need to define this, and so what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to say let frames per second equal to 30. Okay, we could also just do that as a const, because this should not be changing unless we wanted to create some kind of value with, or some kind of selector within our application to change that value. And but right now we're doing just like we want to. Okay, so it's going to be 30 frames per second. And so the next thing we want to do, okay, so we want to test this out. So we're going to call draw board here, just to make sure things are working. Okay, so I save that, run it, and things are still working. Okay. All right, and so what we want to do now that we have set our frames per second, is we want to be able to select something within our board. So the first thing we're going to do is set a mouse x and y. So we're going to say let x equal to 0, let y equal to 0. Okay? And we're going to create an event listener. And so we're going to say canvas dot add event listener. And this listener is going to be our mouse down listener. So whenever the user clicks his mouse down, it's going to get fired. And we're going to tie this to our own method called getPosition. Okay. And so we probably want to create that. And we're going to create that right here. We're going to say function getPosition. And it does take in this argument of event from the event listener. Okay. And so here we're going to set the value of our x and y. So I made a mistake right here, 16. This should say 0. I'm sure y'all caught that. And we're going to say x is equal to event dot x minus canvas dot offset left. And we're going to say y is equal to event dot y minus canvas dot offset top. Okay. Okay, so whenever they click down, what it does is it changes our x and y that we have right here. Okay, and we're only going to be using a single event listener. Oftentimes, the mouse down, you don't want that. You don't want just a mouse down tied to your x and y. You want mouse down tied to the action that it's actually taking, and that would probably be a variable called mouses down, a Boolean variable that sets mouses down equal to true. And then when mouse up is initiated, when you let go of the mouse button, then you would set it to false. And so, but here we're just going to say whenever mouse is down, we want to update this x and this y. Okay. And so what we want to do now is we have a way of saying where our mouse is when we click it. Okay. And so what I want to do is create a function that is going to do collision. Now, before I do that, I want to create, because I'm clicking it, it should update some value. Okay, so it's going to update a value called notes played, and that's just going to be a single array. So we're going to say let notes played equal an array. Okay, and let's go ahead and set some values to that. And so it's not just an empty array. We're going to create a 2D array out of that. All right, and so we're going to do that using 2 for loops. So we're going to say for. We're going to say let r equal to 0. And so here I'm using r to indicate this is going to be our row value. But in our array, it is symmetrical, rows and columns. So it's just going to be 16 by 16. So ultimately, if you get confused about it, it won't matter to our program. But here, what we want to do is we want to say let r, well, r is less than 16. Note that down here we did 17 because we wanted a line at the end and at the bottom of the array. But here we're just doing 16 because 0 through 15 would give us our 16 values that we want. And so we're going to say r++. And then what we're going to say is notes played at r is equal to a new array. Okay? And then what we're going to say is, I'm just going to copy this. I'm kind of lazy. we're going to create a new for loop to set the values of this new array that we're creating here. And so this is no longer going to be C, this is going to be our column. So the column of our new array, so each column within our new array, what we want to do is set it just to equal 0. So we're setting our whole array equal to 0. So if we went here, this would be 0, this would be 0, this would be 0. You get the point. And what we want to do is if we click it, that value should turn to 1. Okay? Meaning that that's a value that's a note that should be played along that time frame. Okay? And so what we want to do is we want to go and create a function called collision. Alright, so I'm going to go down here under draw board. And so we're going to say function collision. And similar to what we did up here, so I'm just going to copy, in fact, I'll just copy this. Lazy programmers are a good thing. Not too lazy, just lazy. They're often more productive. Okay, and so what we want to do here is R at 0 and C at 0 gives us an individual box to look at. So R at 0 and C at 0 is here. R at 1 and C at 1 is equal to here, and you get the idea. So that allows us to figure out what box we're in. But it doesn't give us the positioning of the box, the x's and the y values, but we're going to look at that right now. And so what we want to do is we want to figure out the x values and the y values that define our boxes. And lucky for us, it's pretty easy because our boxes are just 25 by 25 squares, 25 pixels by 25 pixels. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create some if statements. So if x is greater than r times 25 plus 25 and x is less than r times 25 plus 50, so this is the edge, the end of the box. So, and then we said and. Okay, so this says that we are within the x's that we want, and here we're just going to bring our new line, our if statement down here so that it doesn't go off our screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. So what I want to do is I want to copy this. And instead of saying x here, we're going to say y. And this is going to say c. Looks good. We could probably say greater than or equal to here. So what do we want to happen if that is true? So if this value is true, what do we want to happen? Well, we want to actually figure out if the note is already being registered. So we want to say if notes played at RC is equal to 0. Well, if it's equal to 0, what we were going to do is we're going to draw a green box there, okay, to indicate that it's actually already registered. So ctx.begin path. Well, actually, what this is actually saying that it's not there. Okay, so what we're going to do is if it's not there and we've clicked it, we're going to draw a green box there saying that, hey, we've clicked it, this has been selected. And we're going to set notes played equal to 1. Okay, so this is going to say begin path, and then this is going to be our rectangle. In fact, we can just do fill style. And if you want some custom colors there, that's fine. I'm just going to use some predefined colors. And I'm going to say ctx.fillRect, and I want it to say r times 25 plus 25, c times 25. Super easy when they're all like the same measurements and the same dimensions. And then we're going to say 25, 25. That bugs me. Okay, and so here that should end our fill rect. We're going to say that. And then what we want to do is fix that error first. We want to say notes played at RC is equal to 1. All right. Now here's the trick. Okay, so we have mouse down saying that X and Y, whenever we hit our mouse down, X and Y is going to equal to this value. Okay, whatever this value is on the screen. And this if statement is saying, well, if it is this, then do this. So we only want this if statement to trigger once when we click it, not trigger until we don't click it anymore. Because ultimately, even if we let up our mouse, the X and Y would stay to whatever this is. And so it would make what we're trying to do here pretty difficult. Okay? And so what we want to do is we want to set X and Y out of the bounds of the screen. Okay? It's kind of like saying mouse is down equal to false when we're no longer using it. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to say X is equal to -1. Y is equal . Okay, and so what that's going to do is it's going to not make this if statement true anymore, because X and Y would then be -1. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to change this fill style a little bit, and it's going to be E8 across, and so we want to change it back to, in fact, I think that's what it is up here. So it's EEE. It doesn't really matter. And so what we want is this is the same, and we want this to go back to 0. Okay? And so collision should be working now. So if it's not, oh, this is a big change. This says that if it's already 1, we've clicked it, we want to change it back to 0. And if this is already 0 and we click it, we want it to change it to 1. Okay? And so that's all we're doing here. There's nothing extra that we need there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to test it. Someone's having fun in there. We're going to test it, and it should work. Okay, so put it in my draw statement right there, and I am going to click away. And it's not working. Okay, so let's actually inspect, see if there's any issues going on. Okay, so we got collision, we got green, fill style, fill rect. Let's see here. Okay. Did I make any errors? we say fill style is equal to green, and okay, let's see here. Okay, so small little issue. We just had an if when we needed an else if. So the flow that was happening is we have an if here, we change it to 1, and then we have this if. If it is 1, then change it back to gray. Simple mistake. I should have looked at that a little bit closer. But so now only this or only this will fire within that. Okay, so if we go ahead and save that and we click on that, we now see that it changes. Okay, and so if we click on green again, it changes it back to 0. And now we have the beginning of our program, because now all we have to do is set time to go across this, and as the time progresses, these notes play. Okay, and so that's what we're going to be doing in our next video, is probably sorting out what musical instruments map, or what sounds map to each of these rows, and we'll go from there. All right, see you then.